So Jay, I want to switch gears for just a second and talk about a tweet that I saw earlier this morning written by Andrew Yang, who was running for president a couple years ago. He was one of the Democratic candidates or nominees, what have you. He ran. He ultimately backed out, but he is definitely pro-labor. That's kind of that was one of his big selling points when he was running.
Right.
And last year, when Zelina Vega got released,
I remember hearing this guy.
He tweeted something kind of the effect of, it's like, we hear you wrestlers, let's try and get some kind of like
union or something.
Yeah, collective bargaining for the wrestlers and stuff like that.
She's since taken down that tweet.
Yes, well, we can talk about that a different time. But so the Andrew Yang thing, that happened, and then there was some kind of buzz about that. Faded away for a while, but then this morning he tweeted again and said this, quote, "Had a call with the Department of Labor. If you are a current or former WWE performer who feels you are misclassified as an independent contractor, contact this name here, Lucas Middlebrook, who is the union side labor attorney who represents airline and professional sports-related labor groups, including professional fighters." And Yang says, "Let's get you what Vince owes you. Been a long time coming, but this storyline is real." And then he follows it up with a tweet from about a half hour ago from when they were recording this saying, "All you have to do is Bo leave." So it turns out Andrew Yang is a Bo Dallas fan. So
maybe that's the first guy that's getting a lawsuit out of Vince.
Apparently. Maybe he's the first one. He says early returns are positive is what Yang followed up with. So it sounds like that's very interesting because we've talked about this before off air, and I've talked about it on the channel about the possibility or a possible necessity for unionization or some kind of just labor laws or labor rules in place for wrestlers, or for them not to be misclassified as independent contractors, especially when they're working for WWE, where that is legitimately the only place they can wrestle. I think that if Yang and Lucas Middlebrook here can get things done or get things moving, I think that is a huge step in the right direction for wrestler representation and autonomy in their business and how they're paid and how they're treated. Like, there's so many things that I think could benefit from some kind of overhaul of the labor laws, or at least how wrestlers are classified as independent contractors.
Is this more so for people in WWE and big companies? Like, do you think AEW is doing the same thing too? Or
I know that like early on AEW or Cody specifically kind of teased about the possibility of some kind of union, but that eventually totally turned into nothing. But I know, but Andrew Yang's tweet seems to be specifically directed toward WWE, and I think that's an important distinction because I don't think that like all of wrestling needs to be unionized or like full unionization.
I'm just wondering if that affects other like independent promotions and stuff too.
I think that if something happens with WWE and how they classify their wrestlers, that could start a precedent and set up a domino effect of other companies making changes as well. Now, I think that, like I mentioned, the smaller indie companies probably don't have like the money and the ability to do the same things that like WWE might have to do at some point. But I think that if we're sticking with WWE, and that's what Andrew Yang is focusing on, I think that they need to seriously have some kind of discussion or overhaul on that because, like we said, they're considered independent contractors, which is how Vince gets away with not giving them any kind of health insurance, any kind of medical leave. It's basically it's like these wrestlers aren't allowed to go for any other company or practically do anything else, any kind of side projects without the explicit permission of WWE, which I don't know. To me, that seems to fly in the face of the spirit of what an independent contractor is.
Right. Isn't that so weird? I mean, like in my opinion, someone like let's just reference Bo Leave real quick.
Yes.
If you're a Bo Dallas, right, and you're on the main roster and they're not using you at all, you're basically sitting at home and you were a character that was somewhat built, you should, if you're an independent contractor, be able to go out and wrestle an indie show every once in a while because you're not wrestling on TV.
Exactly. And we see a lot of ROH and AEW talent are not exclusive to those companies, and we see them wrestling in indies right now. And so I think you either change the status or the filing status of the WWE wrestlers, or you allow them to go out and do shit if they're not busy. He's reaching out to WWE wrestlers and trying to get something. That's a direct call to action, as opposed to the last tweet he did last year, which seemed more kind of a vague, "We're coming for Vince." This is more direct, and I think that means that they have some kind of plan in place.
Right.
So as somebody who is in the business and who understands the toil that the wrestlers go through and everything, and also as you and I who observe like how like the culture is right now in wrestling and how WWE wrestlers seem to be perceived and how they are treated by the company and how they are regarded and what they are allowed and not allowed to do, I think this would be only a step in the right direction.
Well, to be fair, though, I mean, from what I have always heard from people is that Vince does take care of medical bills and like rehabs and stuff like that.
Okay.
I mean that's just being fair on what I've heard. Now, have you heard of any instances where Vince was like, "No, fuck you, go and die"?
No, that's true. He's done a lot of things where it's like he's paid for rehab, and he is also, there's like been like surgeries and stuff they pay for.
I mean, he can only sponsor Jake Roberts so many times.
I'm talking about just regular health insurance, like prescription coverage and doctor's visits and things like that. Things that aren't that cover the broader sense of what health insurance is.
So those aren't at all.
No, as far as I know, those are not covered at all for wrestlers in WWE or for any wrestlers.
I mean, like let's say an average. I'm not asking what you pay or what I pay necessarily for insurance, but what is health insurance even for someone who's in dire straits? $1,000 a month?
Yeah, that's
right. Well, that is a lot, but let's just say you're making WWE money. Is that really a lot for your health?
Well, it depends on what you're talking about by WWE money, because developmental wrestlers make a lot less than main roster wrestlers.
There's got to be something there.
All the main roster people, when they're on the road, all those expenses as far as travel and everything still come out of pocket. So and of course, because they're independent contractors, they're taxed differently than somebody else who has to who's not an independent contractor.
Every WWE wrestler has a Nike shoebox underneath their bed that's just full of freaking receipts and rubber bands.
Right, exactly. They got to save their receipts for sure. So I mean, it's one of those things where they're making this big TV money, but they don't really see all that. They don't see the billions that WWE is getting from all these TV deals necessarily. So
no,
it's one of those things where they could technically afford it, but it's like then when you factor in all these other expenses just in their lives, especially if they have families, then I think that it's something that WWE can definitely afford. This multi-billion-dollar company to give their wrestlers health insurance. They give the office staff health insurance. They give the people who work at Titan Tower or whatever it's called now health insurance, but they won't give them to the wrestlers who are actually like risking their health every night. I've never bought into that. I've never liked that. And so I think that at the very bare minimum.
Do you think that that's there because Vince doesn't want someone to go into business for themselves and hurt themselves, like doing a stupid move just because it's WrestleMania and I'm going to do it or something, and he doesn't want to have someone's death on his hands or something? No, I'm just being honest with you.
I don't think giving someone health insurance gives someone a license to act recklessly. That's not at all what I think that means.
Well, no, but I'm just saying that, if wrestlers like, I could break my neck and this could be it, like let's say a Brock Lesnar, right, doing the shooting star press.
Okay.
Kind of thing, right? Like, do you think that he would be more willing with insurance to do the shooting star press than without?
I've never thought of that.
I'm being honest with you.
Okay, well, I'm having a hard time thinking that like a wrestler would ever act. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess there's the possibility that like a wrestler wouldn't do certain things, but I mean, you take into the fact that wrestlers get injured doing the most basic shit. I'm going to tell you right now, there was a wrestler,
Randy Orton.
There was a wrestler at Ring of Honor. I won't name him, but you have to see it on TV. But he got busted open hard way, really nastily from an arm drag. Jay, he took an arm drag, he landed wrong, and his face and his nose got busted open. So, like, I don't understand.
Arm drag?
Yeah, it happens. These are professional athletes, and sometimes people hit each other the wrong way, and something happens, and that's not them being more reckless. It's just that's the nature of wrestling. So I don't buy into the idea of wrestlers, consciously thinking that they can take bigger risks because they'll have someone covering the medical bill. I think that there's way more at play than that, but I don't think that would be the case at all. And so I don't think Vince would be any more responsible for a wrestler getting hurt on his show if he's providing their health insurance. If anything, like it'd be more responsible for him just to be there and like have the support system in place for his wrestlers.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that I don't agree. I'm just asking, like, I'm trying to debunk why, after all these years, how corporate they've gone in stock markets.
Well, it's because they're cheap and they treat the wrestlers like cattle. That's literally it.
Want to hear more? Subscribe to This Week in Regret on YouTube for full episodes of the podcast, dropping every Thursday night. Don't forget, we're also on SoundCloud.